Does this take you back?
What's that?
Does this take you back?
Oh yeah, I'm right there now.
I feel like you're right. Right in the driver's seat. Well, in this case, in Europe.
I'm not for the arms out driving position anymore. No,
More.
I'm more the NASCAR guy up on the wheel. Yeah,
Rich, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Doing
I'm
good.
doing good. I'm glad to be here talking to you about this.
What's that?
This is these are my notes. 3 out of the 4 cars that I drove this year have been driven previously in almost identical trim, and so I went through to compare every data point in terms of speed and sector time to see how I did. Of course, hoping I did better, which wasn't always the case everywhere on every corner. But yeah, so this gave me some idea of what I was doing versus what the previous driver, in some cases, the previous driver was me, like on this first car. Where I did it and where I improved or where the car improved.
Do you like having the bogeys in advance, or does it give you some anxiety?
Both. You know, because you know what, I'm driving this car. I want to be faster than I want to be faster than the other guy, and then I even want to be faster than me. So yeah, you know, it's the whole thing is a combination. The whole event is a combination of excitement and nerve-wracking moments.
Right. Well, let's start with the first one. It's the Subaru BRZ TS. So walk me through your experience driving this BRZ versus the last gen, not the first version of this generation.
Yeah, a few years ago, I drove the first, this same car. The TS version's got Brembo brakes, Hitachi dampers, but the rest of it's the same tires, same horsepower, gearing, everything. And we run for 3 days, but really you do one session each day. So on my second session, I was already 1.3 seconds a lap faster, looking to go even faster on the final day when we run on fresh tires. And the big difference to me was the brakes. You can see me, you know, I'm having to throw in some opposite lock because this car handles just like the other one did, despite the damper change. It likes to go tail out, and you don't want to let it get too sideways or you slow down. So you have to keep flicking that wheel when it starts to oversteer.
It's driving engagement, right?
And it's great on the street, but you really, you know, even though it's on a fast car, it's very exciting and challenging on the track. Now, this one, this time, like I said, I ended up being 1.3 seconds faster, but I always learn something in these events, and this time it was the planning. And on the last day, my laps in this car got pushed into the afternoon when the track was warm and I couldn't go any faster like I thought I would. But this car was particularly faster right here, all the way down this back straight, not faster in miles an hour, but because the brakes were so much better. Previously, you could do only one lap and the brake pedal would mush to the floor. So here I could put together several repeated laps and get into the rhythm and find my braking points and then push those braking points deeper. So like right here, you'll see on that little ball on the back of on the side there showing G-load, I was braking all the way through that corner and I knew the brakes were going to be there, and I could refine that lap after lap because I didn't have to worry about brake fade. So the more consistent laps you can put together, it's like muscle memory. You just naturally go faster, have more confidence in the car, and really that was the reason the car was going faster. Because otherwise, with the older car, I could do one lap, had to do 2 cool down laps, another lap, 2 more cool down laps, and you really never got the ability to really work on each detail of the race course, particularly the braking, the way you could with this car. So now it's a full track capable car that you can drive for a whole session on any track day event, and then come in, refuel, go out, and you probably do a whole tank of fuel without the brakes fading.
That's perfect. You want the performance, but you also want to trust that it's there.
And that makes all the difference, you know, and it makes you comfortable and allows you to go quicker. And this was proof. It really probably in the end should have been 2.3 seconds a lap quicker, but I never got that third run in good condition. So I was quite happy about this, and it was nice to beat myself previously and not fall behind.
Well, the TS overall seems like a worthwhile upgrade for the BRZ, especially for people who really want to do the track days, because it sounds like it's the right setup. You basically just need gas and then a helmet, right?
It's the only way to go if you really want to be a serious track day driver in one of these BRZs, or the equivalent GR86,
Right.
same package.
Right. We're going to stay with the TS theme and move on to the Subaru WRX TS. Let's start that lap.
Yeah, this is a similar situation where they upgraded the car with Brembo brakes. This has a little more to it. The tires are the same width, but they went up from 18s to 19s in a different tire. And this has adaptive dampers, Recaro seat, and slightly lighter wheels. And this one, I've got to look at my notes here. Again, we had a standard WRX a year or two ago. So how much did these changes improve the car?
Right.
And again, at least for me, I didn't drive the WRX, the standard WRX a couple of years ago. Dan Edmonds did. But again, for me, it was the confidence of having brakes. He had mentioned that the brakes are a little weak in that car. And here, this one had a combination of two things: brakes that never faded, so you could put together laps, and this car also had tremendous amounts of understeer. It pushed so bad, I thought, the front tires were going to fall off the thing. I know. But that meant it was very hard to spin. So it was very stable. It just went through here flat out. And you could brake very hard and very deep into the corners. And again, coming up here into the Oak Tree complex, I carried the braking deeper than I ever had before, right across this apex here, still slowing down. And the same thing at the end of the back straight, where you turn and you turn part way through the braking zone. And that made the car very comfortable to drive. It was still very exciting, even though, again, it's not really fast in a straight line. But it had good feel to it, and the brakes, again, give you the confidence to do repeated laps. Now, yeah, you start braking here, and I'm braking while turning quite hard, and the car, is stable.
Okay.
And you can't do that as aggressively with everything. Some cars do it better than others, but this one, I don't know what you'd have to do to spin it. But thank goodness it put up with my ham-handed driving. But
there's a lever right next to the ship. Boy. Well, it's interesting too to hear you talk about understeer less as in terms of frustration, but more as like a tool for stability, something that gives you confidence.
Well, it does, and I think it's particularly good for newer drivers.
Yeah.
Sure, when you got a lot of experience, you can handle cars that are more neutral, but this really it's still fun, but it also is very stable for someone who wants to do track days and is new to it. And that's how you learn. You don't want to go out in a car that's really tail happy and hard to control, and this one's quite easy to control in that respect. So yeah, again, like the BRZ TS, this is now a fully capable track day car. You just drive it to work in the morning, and then on Saturday morning drive to the track, and you don't have to do anything except adjust the tire pressures. And it's really quite good. I know the fanboys will be not that thrilled that it's not that fast, but it's really not a fast car at all anymore, given its reputation.
So I've got a question for you though, now that we've watched both Subarus. Let's say, Rich, I come to you, I want a Subaru TS of some kind to purely do track days. Don't care if it's a sedan or a coupe. Are you recommending the WRX or the BRZ?
That's a good question, right? Well, I have to say, how much experience do you have?
None. Total novice.
I still think I'd go with the BRZ, just because once you get out of that novice phase, maybe after you've done a season of track days, you really start to know how to push the car. As you get closer to its limits, then it's the more exciting of the two cars and the more challenging of the two cars.
Interesting. Well, we've covered rear-wheel drive, we've covered all-wheel drive. Let's move on to front-wheel drive with the Hyundai Elantra N. So this is another repeat, but this one has fewer changes, right?
This one has a couple of minor changes, like to rear suspension and subframe bushings, and the front fascia, I think, was opened up a little bit for better cooling. Now, Tony Quiroga, our editor-in-chief, drove this car the year before.
Masterfully, we might add.
I have to say masterfully. He has 2,000 laps, and he's a great driver. And he set a time on worn tires because they didn't send an extra set. Most of our cars come with an extra set of tires. And really, the first few laps on most of these new tires are going to be the good ones. After that, they settle down to a slower lap time. So he did a great job. And you hear that, Tony? You did a great job. But I wanted to beat him. But I had fresh tires on this morning. And, different cars, different days. It's not the same exact car.
Sure.
But very sharp handling, quick steering, very stable, fun to drive.
This is a very fun car.
This car is multiple seconds faster than the the WRX TS, and it's a lot less expensive. So It's got a lot going for it. Interestingly, compared to Tony's car, I got onto the front straight 0.3 of a mile an hour slower, but at the end of the front straight, I was going almost 4 miles an hour slower. So,
okay.
Was there a headwind?
Yeah.
Was there a difference in the front end that added a little more aerodynamic drag? I couldn't tell you. We don't know. But I can say this one's really fun. And it's fast enough to show you how things have progressed.
Right.
That this car set the same lap time as a 518 horsepower Mercedes. I think it was a C63 coupe back in 2011. So that's how much tires and suspension.
Right.
I mean, this thing's got 276 horsepower. It matched a 518 horsepower car from, 13 years ago.
Yeah.
So, and nothing. It doesn't do anything wrong. It's very, very well balanced for a front driver, and again, lots of fun, and pretty darn quick for what it is and for the money.
And I think you touched on the real strength of this car, which is it's friendly, it's super affordable, it's enjoyable, and it's fast. Like there's a lot of things, a lot of success with this car here.
And it's a really nice car on the street. I mean, it rides well, handles well, it's really zippy. So again, another car you can drive right from your driveway to the track and have a successful, fun Saturday track day, and then just use it as to commute to work, and it's a really pleasant and enjoyable ride.
Which exhaust sound did you have it in? The interior noise, because you could change it.
I didn't mess with that at all. I wasn't focused on sound. As the next car we will talk about had no sound, and I didn't even notice it.
Just setting you up for that, because this one you can make sound like a rally car. So it had all the fun little quirks, but
yeah, I had it in Sport Plus mode and stability control off, and that was all I was worried about.
I asked about drive modes because the next vehicle we're going to talk about, the Hyundai Ioniq 5N, has no shortage of them. Before we watch the lap, how long did it take you to find out like your ideal drive mode?
Well, I didn't even attempt to go through all of them because you don't get a lot of laps in an electric car. So I asked Hyundai for the basic setup, and that consists of you have to precondition the battery. It has to be at 95% or better. You have to be in race mode. Then you have to be in N race mode, and then you can choose between stability control on or off, or Sport Plus. And so those were the couple of things I decided to mess around with: stability control on or off, or Sport and Sport Plus suspension setting. And so I went out and tried that, and it took I did 3 sessions, and it took until the 3rd session to really figure out the car and figure out which of those, even those last couple of settings, was the way to go, because on the 2nd set of sessions, it spit me off the racetrack when the brakes stopped working, I think because it thought it was in midair.
Yeah.
And that was pretty scary. So I changed the suspension to a softer setting so it wouldn't heave so much, hoping that would make a difference, and drove it a little differently. Made sure I didn't go over any rises with my foot on the brake. So yeah, it's a complicated car. So I had the cheat code for it directly from Hyundai, and I needed it to.
It's funny that you actually mentioned cheat code, because it kind of reminds me of the Konami code that, I would use as a kid in all the video games. It was up, down, left, right, select, start, A, B.
Ooh.
Every game made by the same manufacturer had the same code. It's funny to see it something similar with the Ioniq 5N. Let's start the lap.
Yeah, this car, I had these low-slung sedans and sports cars. Normally, you drive this on the street, it feels like just a hot hatch. Compared to these other cars, I felt like I was sitting way up in the air. This weighs 2,000 pounds more than the BRZ. It felt big and heavy by comparison. And of course, it had 601 horsepower.
Right.
And if you hit the N-Grin button, it goes to 641.
Did it repeatedly tap that button?
Well, I forgot to tap it on my fast lap, which is this, because I was so thrown off by the car going off the track on my 2nd session. I was just focusing on doing a really, really clean lap because I just didn't know if I'd have another chance.
Right.
So this is a pretty conservative lap. I don't ride the curbs too much, and just try to not make any mistakes.
Right.
But it still always had 601 horsepower. So when you go to accelerate out of these corners, you're very gentle with the accelerator, cause it's powerful. But I had a vehicle to compare this one to also, and that's the EV6 GT that Dave Vanderwerp ran the year before. Same basic platform, same basic powertrain, 25 horsepower less. But this car's been upgraded in every way: suspension, steering, handling, dampers, tires. How much of a difference would it make?
Yeah.
And we knew it was going to make some difference. It had to be quicker. And the EV6 had some evil handling traits threw Dave off the track on his very first lap. Terrible oversteer.
And the front straight.
Going up in the climbing S's.
That too.
And
It was both.
And yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And this car was very well behaved, quite well balanced. Got into the climbing S's at 133 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour faster than Dave dared to go on the EV6. It was like that everywhere. And in fact, this is the corner where I came around on the 2nd set of laps, went over the rise, and just spit me straight off for no reason. So I was real careful there too. But yeah, this thing really gets up and goes, and it's delightful to drive on the track. The problem is that you use up enough juice that you don't get a lot of laps, and then you have to recharge. And that's the issue with this car as a track vehicle. It was a blast to drive, and compared to that EV6, it had, as I said, only 25 more horsepower the way I was using it, and it was 4.6 seconds a lap faster.
Wow.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
And was really enjoyable to drive. Very well behaved, good steering feel, quite fast. Anytime you put your foot into it, you had to treat it with respect. But yeah, they did a great job with that basic platform. And yeah, I think 141 on the front straight.
That's moving.
Yeah, it's hauling. Yeah, you'll see it here. It'll probably come over the finish line like 140 miles an hour. And considering it's not that super quick in the corners, so it makes up for it on the straightaway. So yeah, but no sound. And people are like, oh, people wonder, well, how do you drive a car without sound? Doesn't it give you cues? It's funny. You don't need that. If you have to shift it, and in this mode you don't do any shifting, and there's no sound. So it's like, in a sense, like a go-kart. You've got a brake pedal you use with your left foot and a throttle on your right foot, and you're just focused on all the things you need to look at to drive quickly. The braking points, the turn-in points, the apexes. the feel through the steering wheel, how much the car's sliding. You really don't notice the lack of sound. On the street,
Yeah.
you have more time for these things, and it's more fun, and I love the sound on the street. But here, didn't make any difference. It didn't help or hurt.
Well, at least on the street, you can also dial in all the fake sounds and make that thing sound like whatever you want it to, you know?
I like loud cars on the street, so on the street, I always had the sound on this, playing boy racer. But out here, when you're really trying to go fast with it, uh, it's not a plus or a minus.
Well, thanks for walking us through these laps. What are you looking forward to most next year?
I kind of like driving that high horsepower car.
Oh, yeah?
They gave me the lower horsepower cars this year, and maybe I can convince them to let me drive a little more horsepower across the board.
You want to step it up?
I'm ready to step it up.
Memo to leadership. Well, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.